Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside.
And outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
I now have the pleasure of introducing Richard Tierney. Richard is the creator of two separate programs. The first program is teaching children and their families that our feelings and emotions are not mental disorders. Rather, they are God-given instincts, our gut feelings to be trusted in the face of any danger, real or imaginary. The second is a book with a number of exercises that parents, guardians, and teachers can conduct, whether around the kitchen table, a community center, or a classroom. Welcome, Richard. It is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Herb, Christina, thank you very much for having me.
Yes, thank you. And get us started with kind of the pivotal point or when you realized that you needed to start putting this message out there. What inspired you to create the books, the programs, and help children and family in this way?
I think, firstly, I'm in recovery myself. I had a trauma when I was a child, and it really destroyed me. It wasn't that I wanted to die, but I didn't want to live. You know, I felt such shame and self-loathing. So that was kind of a part to it. And then later on in life, I got married and I had children. And my children were bullied in school. And so we had to take them out of school and put them into homeschooling. There really wasn't any option where we live that was going to get better if we put them into another school. And we spoke to teachers and they said it's the same over here. It's like they have a way of treating children that aren't fully Thai, if they're half caste, if they're half Thai, half Western, half Thai, half Japanese, they get tended to be treated or picked on by, the conventional. I don't want to use the wrong language here, but it wasn't a good place. So we had to look at homeschooling, and I'm from Ireland, so we looked at homeschooling for Ireland. But again, even at that age, the kids said, if we go to leave Ireland, we're going to go to America. Like that is the idea that they go to America and not like to Europe, So I had a mentor of mine, and he said, the best public education is America. Now, back then, that was 20 years ago. He said that American education was the best in the world. And so much to learn. And look up a homeschooling system in America that would do for most of the world, And so that's what got me started on finding a solution to my children's challenges, but also to improve their confidence. That was the big part for children, is to improve their confidence and know that it's okay to have feelings. That was the real big thing we wanted to do. At one stage, it was suggested my daughter had depression because of the bullying and she should see a therapist. And the first thing the therapist did was want to give her medication. Just completely opposed. I didn't want my daughter becoming this zombie on medication and making her life be over. I wanted her to have a normal life. And so I really wanted to set about finding out how we can get her to see, or maybe her depression or anxiety, as actually healthy coping skills.
Yeah. It's so difficult, right? Whenever we have our children in these tough situations and trying to figure out what to do to help them not feel down, not feel depressed, all those different things. And that is one thing that so many people, and even in the classroom, the public classroom, right? It's not taught that your feelings are for a reason. Instead, we're trying, like, let's manage them, let's control them, let's whatever. It's like, but there's a reason that you have them. And it's so very important that they understand that they're not broken. They're not wrong for having the feelings. Now, how they act after they have the feelings, now that can be wrong sometimes. But, just having them is part of life, and they need help understanding that.
Definitely. And there's a couple of things to it that I found for myself. Now, I haven't had these approved or proven by mental health professionals, but I came across some ideas. I remember watching TikTok one day and seeing this TikTok of two brothers in the room, and one says to the other, what happens after we come out of the room? This says, when we come out of the room, we're going to die. Like, it's all over. Like, when we come out of the room, the umbilical cord is going to be cut and we're going to be all over, and that's the end of it. The other guy says, but what if there's something special? Like, they're talking about heaven and hell, What if there's something special after we die, we go to heaven? No. He says, don't be stupid. When we leave the womb and the umbilical cord and all our needs are not being met anymore, our life is over, So this got me thinking about our responses to danger, the three primary of fight, flight, and freeze. So, like, I remember, not that I remember, you can't remember, but looking back on my own childhood, I believe I was in a state of either fight or flight. I came out of the room and I was kicking and screaming. And my mum said to me that I came out, I was kicking and screaming, and the nurse wrapped me up in a blanket and put me in the cot. In that moment, I was taught that my primary response, whether it was fight or flight, wasn't safe, it wasn't healthy, it wasn't going to work. So I ended up coming into life in a state of freeze. So if my response was fight, which I think it might have been, I came into a state of freeze or fawn, a freeze or flight. I was a victim. I couldn't stand up for myself because I'd learned that standing up for yourself doesn't work. If you came out of the room and you were kicking, screaming, you were in a state of flight, and then you're wrapped in a blanket by the midwife, your message is flight doesn't work. You have to either fight or freeze. And if you come out of the room and you're comatose, which happens to a lot of children, they're held up by the ankles and slapped in the bottom by the doctor to get a reaction. They're taught that freeze isn't safe for them, so they go through life in a state of fight or flight. We hear this many times. We can imagine the number of children that must have come out of the room comatose and are slapped in the bum to get a reaction, and they learned that freezing, which is their natural response, God-given response, isn't safe, so they're stuck in fight or flight. And that's what I believe is the fundamental truth for all of us. So if your child is very withdrawn or whatever, then chances are its natural response is to fight, but it's been told fight doesn't work, so now it's kind of very flight or freeze, and so on. I think we can see this very clearly in children. And then the children come out of the room that are happy, joyous, and free, and the nurse puts them on the mother's chest because they're happy, whatever. They come out and all their responses are intact, and they go on to become like the president of America and movie stars and football stars and whatever. And they have this tremendous energy and full of confidence. And they're the kids that come out of the room with their responses intact. The rest of us have had a response taken from us, and so for that, we're not completely whole coming into life.
So how do we start resolving that? So, us being older, it's like we're pretty cemented in, so we need to reach our children at an earlier age. So how do we start breaking these cycles to let them know that they are safe?
Well, first off, understand we're not trained to be parents. That anyone who's new to parenting, no one teaches us to be parents. Every day we're a parent to a new child. So my children today are now 20, 21, 22 and 18. And so let's say my daughter is now 22 years, whatever it is, 2 months and 21 days old. I've never had a 22-year-old, 2 month and 22-day-old daughter before. I had a 22-year-old, 2 month and 21-day-old daughter yesterday. But I've never had this new creature in my life today who's 1 day older, going through puberty and going through all that kind of stuff. I'd never had that. And this is something we have to understand. We're not coming into this as experts. Like our kids, we're doing the best we can. And some days we'll make mistakes, and some days we'll make a wrong decision, and our kids will want to go to therapy because our parents were dysfunctional. We're not experts at this. We're really trying our damnness to do the best we can. And that's the kind of conversation we need to have with our children, to understand that we're doing our best as much as they're doing their best. They've never had a father who's now 65 years old and 6 months and whatever. They had a 65-year-old 6 months and 20 days, but not a 65-year-old 6 months and 21 days. So if we can kind of get them on the same page, that they can see that they're in this kind of no man's land and we're in the same no man's land, it can help to make that kind of connection, which I think helps an awful lot. If they can see that they're not the only ones. It's not a case that we have it all together and they're the virgin territory. We're all in virgin territory. We have more experience of life on life's terms, bringing to the tip. But I think that helps them to see, I'm not broken. We're all in the same boat together.
That is very interesting, because we often talk about with parents about how, as a child grows, there's the bigger stages, like 0 to 2, you're doing like everything for them pretty much. And then from like 2 to 5, they're getting more and more independence. And then 5 and on, they change. And we forget to change from those bigger stages, right, in their life. And you're actually talking about taking it down to every single day. Every single day, they're a new person, a new creation. And so that's really interesting to get that granular, but it makes sense, right? Because you can take the big stages, but then the day to day, because we all wake up with different emotions and different feelings each day. Yesterday might have been an amazing day, and then today we wake up and all of a sudden something is off and we don't feel the same. So yeah, we pretty much are a different person each day. Yeah.
Completely. So I think we have to let them know that it's one day at a time. For all of us, I mean, we've only got this one life on this earth. We don't get to come back and do it a second time, better the next time.
Yeah.
You have this one life, and if we can cut it down to one day and get the most out of each day, and it's very hard to teach this to children because they're not taught that. They're taught to, achieve greatness on the football team or in school and get the best results and this kind of stuff, and really push yourself to achieve. So it's kind of like a bit of kind of a hippie thing to say, slow down, relax, chill. It's like, it's not normal nearly, So, but parents, we have to do that. We have to do some sort of nurturing and caring for our kids because they're our children. They're the future of the human race, but they're also the future for our line, our tribe. And we need to really say, listen, guys, we love you dearly, and you can take this slowly, and no matter what happens, you take it slowly. And I said to my daughter the other night, you go out with your friends, and we're telling you, don't be late home, and we're going to be in bed by midnight. So please, if you're late, get a taxi. I said to her, listen, if you're not feeling safe and it's 4 a.m, you phone me and I'll pick you up. I may not be happy about it. It's more important to me to get you home safely than to worry about the petrol in the car. And so whatever's going on, our first thought for the day is keeping you safe. And rather than you having to rush through life to get to the end of your high school to go to college, take your time.
Yeah.
So how do we start that? So we're not taught that. We weren't raised that way. Society pressure is we have to get to the next thing. So how do we get our parents to start seeing this, to start recognizing this, not only for themselves, but then be able to translate it down to their children? Because again, these things sometimes are very easy to say, yeah, just, and they're cliche, take it one day at a time, do the next thing. But those cliches are cliches for a reason because they're too simple to be true. Yeah. So how do we get started?
Yeah.
Excellent question. Yeah, they're no good on their own. This thing about one day at a time, like it sounds fantastic, but it's a bit hippie-ish. Unless there's actionable steps that they can take, it's a waste of time. I think we benefit greatly from the fact that growing up, we had God in our lives. I mean, it's certainly in Ireland, you had catechism classes, we're in Roman Catholic Church. We went to church every day for your communion, confirmation, all that kind of stuff. And there was mass with the family. We walked down every Sunday. The family would walk down along with their neighbors. They'd walk down to the local church. So there's a lot of spirituality. I mean, we're not like, forgive me. I remember meeting Baptists, and they're really intense. Like, they really have it down to a T, the whole faith thing. We Catholics are very laid back. We really are very poor Christians, I must say. But it was much more laid back, and it's much more not as intense. And I think that helped me an awful lot. The fact that the religion wasn't as intense. We had a big Bible in the sitting room in our house. It was never opened. My mother would polish it and clean it and look fantastic on the whole table. It was never opened for the family to read. And every other Christian faith, you take a Bible out and you read it as the family and you discuss it and whatever kind of stuff. And we Catholics were maybe in our home and nowhere else, but the worst of the worst in the case of being real kind of Christian oriented. But I think children need to know that there is a God, that he cares for them deeply, and the fact that he wants them to be happy, but it has to be on his terms, not on our terms. He's not a go get you God. So I think if you have any training in any faith base at all, if you've been to church as a child and you had catechism in the class, maybe half an hour every night, read the Bible. I don't kind of say you're going to go to mass every Sunday now, or you're going to have to get communion and confirmation or whatever, and you don't have to do this. Just sit down with your family for half an hour and read something from Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Start with the New Testament and just read something about it and get you a discussion about what that means. And then leave it at that. Nothing more than just, what does that mean to you? This means for me. What's the power of prayer? The big thing for me is the prayer. Most people think that our prayers are what we learned at our mother's knee or we learned in church or school. And the mistake we make is our prayers aren't what we learned in church or school or at our mother's knee. There's somebody else's prayers that we learn, like the Lord's Prayer, St. Francis. St. Francis' prayer is a great prayer, but it was his prayer for him. It wasn't for us. So you have to learn that our prayers are the things we say to ourselves all day long. We think no one's listening. They're our prayers. So if your child is saying, I am depressed, I hate my life, I hate my parents, I hate school, I'm being bullied, no one likes me. If this is what they're saying to themselves all day long, that's their prayers. So if we can teach them to change what they're saying, so if they can say something like, up until this morning, I believe that I am depressed and my life is over. We're speaking to mommy and daddy, I realize my life's only beginning. Like, I mean, when I leave school, I never see these classmates again who are all bullies. I'll go off and get a job somewhere, and maybe I'll move countries or move cities, and I'll meet people who will be my tribe, and I'll have a great life. And I'm going to start thinking these wonderful thoughts. I'm going to use dream prayer and manifest, where I'm going to meet people and fall in love and have a great life. And this kind of stuff, teaching children about manifestation, about dream prayer, how you can see the future now and then it happens. And this kind of stuff, I think it's great for our children if we can teach them how to pray properly, to think. The Bible says, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open to you. So God's saying, I'll give you whatever you want. But if you're asking for depression, I'm going to give you depression tenfold. If you're asking for anxiety, I'll give you anxiety tenfold. So you have to change the record playing in your head.
Yeah. You talked about affirmations a little bit, and it's really important whenever we do that, that they aren't thinking that it's going to happen immediately, but by having that glass half full outlook, right? Or that what we call a growth mindset lots of times is like, things can get better. I can learn more things. I can keep moving forward with that kind of attitude and look at life. You're right. That's what helps our children the most understand where they can go in life and things like that. So whenever we're doing that with them, we're sitting down and reading at night the Bible or another awesome book that helps uplift the spirits and things like that. And, we don't need to go into a big lecture like you said, but we can just talk about what was just happening and how did the good come out of that situation or that information that we just got. And really part of it, I think, is when parents actually do that processing as well and kind of talk out loud in front of their children. Oh, I'm disappointed about this that happened today, but I know that I can change this tomorrow and then things will probably be better. When we're doing that inner dialogue that we know and we put it out there for our children, that helps them understand some of their inner dialogue is right. It is also happening. Is that some of the activities and stuff that you have in the book that you also have that goes with the other?
I want to finish off in the prayer first, because I think it's very important. Again, when I did this with my children, I wasn't a Christian. I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't a practicing Christian. I wasn't going to any church, or I didn't go back to my faith. But I remember my wife is Buddhist, and she said to me, I'm raising our children in the Buddhist faith. You're a Catholic. Would you ever introduce your children to the Christian faith so that at least they're over the threshold, and then later on in life they can decide whether they want to go back to God or not. But you as a parent have an obligation to share your tradition with your children. It's really very intelligent of her, So I went down to my local Christian Catholic church, here's a Jesuit church. I met the Jesuit priest and I said to him, I have 2 children and I don't go to church. I'm not a practicing Christian, but my wife suggested I should introduce my children to God. Can you help me? He said, yeah, sure, no problem at all. And he gave me a book, Roman Catholicism for Dummies. He said, read that. You read that from top to bottom, you'll understand the whole Roman Catholic faith. And then you can bring them here to Mass every Sunday, whatever. And then in 6 months, we'll have them baptized. And then you make a decision whether you want to continue coming to church or not. At least you'll have introduced them to the concept of the Catholic God. You'll have had them baptized. And at least then, later on in life, they can make a decision for themselves. And it was a wonderful sensation that I wasn't being forced into joining a specific denomination or having to speak my loyalty to one denomination. I was being given an option to, as a lapsed Christian, to introduce my children to God. And in doing this with them, I found my faith again. I tried the Roman Catholic faith wasn't for me. I tried the Baptist, I tried the Protestant, the Presbyterian, the Anglican. None of them worked for me. And I realized I'm not a religious guy. I'm not into churches. But I have my Bible. So I will read Bible. I read loads of there's great authors I love, Emmett Fox and Joseph Murphy and Norman Vincent Peale. And you can find these Christian authors that are really mind-blowing, American, English, not many Irish, but it's American and English and Western Scottish, that really carry a wonderful message. And I found all these books in Christian stores, and I'd read these, and I'd talk to these with my kids. And I give there's a guy in America that talking to me, he's one of these one of the ones that promotes money, the wealth pastors is called Vic Warren. But he wrote a book called The Purpose Driven Life. And it was a godsend to me. I couldn't get over it. I was in this Christian church and a Christian shop here in Tierney, and your man said to me, we just got a load of books in from America. And there's one book from a guy called Rick Warren. We got about 100 of his books. Do you want to take some for your work? I'm working in the treatment center and I'm running this meditation group. I'm kind of going, yeah, sure. So I took about 20 of his books. They had like 12 steps in this book. You could read one at a time. So read one each night. Like, what's the lamp? And they loved it. And I loved it. It was wonderful, simple message about, give God a chance for one day in your life. Just decide, for today, I'm going to be a God-fearing man. I'm going to pray. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to whatever for one day and see what happens. And so I think when we're dead and gone, I think we have to give our children a power that they can call on. And that's why I'm promoting the God thing first. I think as parents, we have an obligation to introduce our children to the concept of God, because he may be real. God may be real. And if he is, and we haven't told our children, we are doing them a disservice. So for every parent out there, find some way, even if you're against God now or religion or whatever, and you've had problems. I had problems with my Roman Catholic faith because I had priests who taught me who were bullies and who used to beat up kids, whatever. So I had my own personal grievances, but it wasn't about me, it's about my children. So as a parent, can I suggest to you, find some way that you will introduce your children to a concept of God, so they'll know in the darkest hour, they can't call on someone, they feel completely alone, that they can reach out to God, ask God to send 10,000 angels down to protect them, that kind of thing. So we're doing it for our children, not for ourselves. I'm not imposing upon you to become a Christian, but to give a gift of the idea that there is a God out there that cares for them, and he will come to their rescue if they know how to ask. And if you give them that gift, I think it's a wonderful gift to give.
So one of the things that becomes kind of obvious when talking with people about this is most people who are against God or against a church is because of a person that did something. And so how do we reach more people to say, hey, if you have a problem with the church, is it a problem with you had people in the church? Or because it's like, if you turn to God and look for that instead of, oh, but this person who represents is like that person represents not correctly or not for you. So how do we get people to like, okay, well, yeah, people aren't the right thing. You have to look past that to God. How do we help people?
Well, but there's two sides. One side is we're doing this for our children. So we'll do anything for our children to make our children's lives better. So even if we have a grievance towards a priest or the Pope or whoever it is, we're making a commitment now to give God to our children. Not for ourselves. We need never go to church in our lifetimes. But we're making a decision to give God to our children. Now, maybe we'll find a different church, completely different church, where this person won't be around. Maybe if it's Catholic church, you go to a Protestant church. If it's a Protestant church, you go to a Presbyterian. You're giving a gift to your children, and that's the end of it. You're not looking for excuses not to do it. But if you were an aunt or an uncle and you had a problem, I would say to you, the Bible has a very explicit instructions about wrath, and there's two choices. And it really blows me away, because if you hold your anger towards somebody, okay, for your lifetime, what happens is that when they die, they get to go to heaven. Because they don't get served by your wrath and God's wrath. You have to choose which wrath you want. So again, you may hold your anger against that person in resentment, and they never get taken to court, or they never have to face jail time. But because you wasted all your life on that anger, they get a free pass into heaven. But if you give your anger to God today and say, okay, so-and-so did this to me, I hate him with his guts, but now I'm going to pray for him. I'm going to forgive him completely. I'm going to give him over to you. And you do that for 30 days, 10 times a day, 20 times a day, until such time as they no longer press your buttons. So you have to do this like 10 times a day, every day for 30 days. And then one day, I think of Christina and I'm not triggered. I think of Herb, I'm not triggered. You'll know in that moment that that's the moment when you've given it to God. And the guarantee is that when they die, they're going to go to the fires of hell for all eternity and 7 generations of their descendants. I mean, it's a huge toll wrath to give to them. But you know then that you've had your life and you've cast them from your mind, so you can have peace of mind today. So you can enjoy the company of your wife and your husband and your children and life around you and all the rest of it. And you didn't let them control you all your life. And then at the end of their days, excuse my language, they're affected.
Her
That's
boss,
the Bible's.
Yeah, Herb
That's
often
like the Bible.
talks about,
Good.
if you're angry with someone, you're actually, what is it? It's a poison.
Yeah, if
So-
you're angry at somebody, it's like you drinking a poison and expecting them to die. Because if you have those, it's cortisol in your body, it's epinephrine and norepinephrine in your body that creates damage within you. So being angry at somebody else or not, or holding that contempt,
Right, yeah.
that is something that creates chemicals in your body, not in the person over there.
So the idea is, if we're parents, we can't have this anger because the anger is going to intrude upon our lives with our loved ones. So we have to get rid of the anger. We don't even have a choice. If you're single, maybe you can decide to hang on to the anger for a while. But if you're going to be a healthy parent and a healthy husband or a healthy wife, you have to let go of the anger. And the best way is give it to God. Okay, God, I'm going to forgive Joe. I'm going to forgive him, even though I hate him. I'm going to forgive him. I wish him that he has everything I want in my life, he gets. Because the Bible says that whatever we ask for, we get back tenfold. So if we give to Joe forgiveness and success tenfold, we get that back as well. And again, he suffers God's wrath. So that's the prayer part of it, okay? And then there's a dream prayer, which is manifestation. You dream the most beautiful dream. So when you're going to bed tonight, lay in bed, dream a most beautiful dream, Christina and Herb, that when you present this podcast, you get a response from maybe 1 million people come on and say, that's the best podcast ever. So you go to bed tonight and you lay in bed and you have this dream where you see yourself uploading this podcast to your platform, and suddenly the response is amazing, and schools come in and churches come in and they're all coming knocking your door and they want you to, and you're kind of going, and that's the dream you have every night for 30 days, and suddenly in 31 days, this hits home and you kind of go, how did that happen? And you kind of know, well, you dream prayer it into reality, you manifest it. And that's really the whole part of the prayer, the dream. The second part is, I believe that we have 6 responses. The mental health professionals tell us we've got fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Again, because they've taken church out of the schools and the homes, I believe they have removed faith and acceptance from our 6 responses. So I believe our responses are, so flight is basically walk away. So if by chance this podcast isn't what you wanted, you could just turn off the camera and walk away and never see me again. If you're in a home and the parents are fighting, get up and walk away. If you're in a classroom and you're being bullied, get up and walk away. And if you keep walking away, your parents and the headmaster will find out what's going on and they'll confront it. So don't be afraid to walk away, run away, hide in the closet, hide in your bedroom, under the bed. Teach children how to flight. So my suggestion is that parents sit around the kitchen table, or in the school, the teachers sit with the kids around the desk, and they talk about, let's discuss all the different ways to flight. And so you have this chat with your kids, and Christina, yourself and Herb, you come up with some that probably weren't real, but you say, I used to hide under, that Dad says, I used to hide under the bed. The kids kind of go, Dad, hiding under the bed. Let's all go up and hide under the bed now. And you all go up to the bedroom and you hide under the bed for 5 minutes. The kids can't get over that Mommy and Daddy are under the bed hiding with them. But they've learned that it's okay to hide under the bed. Mum says, let's hide in the closet. That's crazy. We don't all fit in the closet. Okay, let's take turns climbing. Let's go into one closet in each room for 5 minutes, come out and say what it's like. And then if they say that was a good thing, then that's a good response they have. If it's a bad one, then they let it go. What else? We can climb up trees in the garden. Okay, let's go out in the garden and climb up a tree. You can start making an activity of choose all the different ways to fly. And you do with them. And if anyone's in the house, or you can invite your aunt or uncles over, or another family, and say to the parents, we're going to do this together. We're going to get our kids to see all these different ways of flight. And then fight is asking for help. So you get your children to say, Mommy, Daddy, I feel very anxious right now. I don't want you to fix or save me, but have you ever felt this way? And you say, yeah, I did. What do you do when you're anxious? I say, when I get anxious, I go and eat an ice cream. I'd go off and go for a swim. I'd go for a cycle. I'd go into my bedroom. I'd do some journaling. I'd do homework. I'd do chores. And they copy you and they do whatever you did. And if it works for them, then they'll keep that one. If it doesn't, they throw it away. So they learn all these different coping skills that are healthy coping skills that you share with them. Then they'll ask their siblings, they'll ask their friends in school, their classmates, their best friends outside, their favorite teacher. And they learn all these different responses of fight and flight. And then freeze is, understand, freeze and fawn are the healthy responses of young children. They're not healthy when we grow up. So when you're a young child in a home, and if the parents are fighting, the child can't leave the house because they're only a child. They'll get lost. And so they freeze, they disassociate. They go to a place of fantasy. They go to a fantasy place of cowboys and Indians or space invaders or something. They go somewhere in the mind where they can be safe, where there's violence whenever going around them. And then when the violence is over, they come back into the room. It's okay for young children to disassociate, to shut down mentally and emotionally, to isolate, to withdraw. And then fawn is people pleasing, playing happy families, keeping your feelings a secret. That's okay when you're a small child because you don't know how to cope. You're really hoping someone else will protect you. But once we get past adolescence, we're not meant to freeze and fawn anymore. So the big intention of this is to teach our children that freeze and fawn are not healthy anymore. You can't have a big cry in your bedroom or lock yourself in the bedroom or whatever, keep yourself. That's freeze or fawn. That isn't healthy. You must come to mommy or daddy or granny or granddaddy or teacher or whatever and say, I feel anxious, I feel depressed. Have you ever felt this way? What do you do? And we teach our children to healthy. And then again, the idea of the faith and acceptance. If we can introduce them a concept of God that works for them, and that they can accept that forget whether the chicken or the egg came first, except there is a God and he loves them and he wants to meet them on his terms. And his terms is, his name is I am. And when we speak, we're meant to speak in the I am, not the I was or not the I will be. And we're to attach to his name all that's good. So rather than saying I am depressed, you can say, up until this morning, I felt I was depressed. But today, after listening to mommy and daddy, I'm decided to say, I am happy, joyous, and free. In this moment, I am happy, joyous, and free. And they learn to use the God's name and attach to his name all that's good. So that's the God part of it, is to get them with prayer and meditation and journaling and reading the Bible and reading other Christian books to understand that having faith in God, when you're at your lowest and mommy and daddy aren't around, you feel threatened. Will you please get me home safely? I'm feeling really scared right now and mommy and daddy aren't here and I have to get home. Will you get me home safely? Send 10,000 angels down to take care of me. Suddenly they get home safely, kind of go, how did that happen? I felt calm and I walked home. What happened there? And they can't understand that God sent them 10,000 angels. And then the acceptance is, understand there isn't a target on your back or on your head. You're not a victim. People act out for their own nefarious needs. That if you're being bullied in school and you stay away for a week, that bully will bully somebody else. It was never about you. It's about the bully needs the bully to feel complete. A narcissist needs to be a narcissist to feel complete. That's what people do, but it's not about you. You're not the target. So if we can teach children, especially, that they're not the target, it's not about them, that's probably the greatest gift we can give them. And then we can work back through the faith thing and then through no secrets from their families. Most kids, they tell their therapist, they tell on social media all their friends about their feelings, but they keep it secret from the parents. And you have to remember, your parents decided to have children. They decided to have you. And they gave you a home and a roof over your head and clothes on your back and food on the table. And they want you to be happy. But they use tough love. They don't want to people please you all the time and listen to you throwing tantrums and pat you and say, there, it's okay, because that doesn't help you grow. They'll use tough love. You'll think they don't love you or they hate you. They're actually trying to get you to be independent. But if you can learn to ask for help and to embrace the tough love, it'll transform. I'm sorry, I've gone over an awful long on those points, but it's very important that we teach children that tough love is okay, that your parents love you, your grandparents love you, your aunts and uncle, your siblings love you. They want you to be stronger in yourself. But if we can learn to teach our children how to use flight, fight, faith, and acceptance, the gift we're giving them, you can't describe. They'll go on to achieve greatness in their lives.
And this is what you cover in your programs and in your book?
Yes, my book is called How to Live Stress and Anxiety Free 24 Hours a Day. It was written for children. I remember, I have to tell you, Herb, I saw this thing on the computer and it said that 6% in every industry, there's a 6% margin for error. So I'm thinking, okay, there's 1 billion people diagnosed with with mental disorders. That means there's about 60,000 are misdiagnosed. And then I'm praying, I'm reading my prayer book and I'm praying at night time. And in bed, not a word of a lie, this voice says to me, go on to Google and research that numbers. I go on to Google and I research how many people have been misdiagnosed with mental disorders. And the number comes back that the mental health industry did a study recently. 39% of all people diagnosed are misdiagnosed. And of the adults, there's 1 billion people. So that's 390 million adults who are misdiagnosed with mental disorders. And of the children, there's 290 million, which means 120 million children have been misdiagnosed, which is a huge number of children. There's a very good chance that your child, if been diagnosed with depression or anxiety, has been misdiagnosed. They don't have a mental disorder. What they have is a hole in their soul. They don't understand that their feelings are healthy and they can trust their feelings. And that's really why I really wrote this book, is to get parents to understand, if teach your children, your feelings are not mental disorders, that they're perfectly healthy to have.
And that is so very, very important. One of the, when we start talking with other, like doctors and things who want to start putting those labels on little kids, is like, wait a second. They shouldn't be depressed. They shouldn't be anxious. They aren't made that way. The kids are made to be joyful, unless something, really horrific has happened to them, but they shouldn't understand those words, and they most likely aren't. When they get a little bit older and there's other chemicals and stuff happening, then that makes more sense. But teach them the other words instead. I'm afraid. I'm sad. I feel down today. But don't put those big, heavy labels on the little kids until you explore and help them share their feelings more.
But even to know that anxiety is okay. Anxiety, if you're anxious, that's God's telling you something's wrong in your life. So if you're right now, you're feeling anxious, that's God maybe telling you, Richard isn't a good fit for this podcast. No, if you're, whatever it is, God is trying to tell you something's not safe in your life. So you trust the anxiety, you take action. So your child doesn't feel safe in school. They're meant to come home and say to you, I don't feel safe around that teacher. I don't feel safe around those classmates. And then you work something out. You like we did. Our kids told us, we're being bullied in school. And we straight away went to the headmaster. We spoke to the headmaster. We spoke to their teachers. We saw the kids in question. I stood there with my fist clenched, making a really kind of angry look behind the teacher. And they were looking at me like nearly shitting their pants, and I'm there not touching them, but just kind of giving this dirty look. If you go near my kids again, you're dead. And then 3 days later, it happens again. And we said, okay, that's it. We took them out and we went homeschooling. So let our children know, if you feel anxious, that's a warning. It's a call to action, a gut feeling to tell your mommy and daddy what's wrong. Yeah. It doesn't matter how, if your aunt or your uncle or your grandparents, you tell your mommy and daddy what's wrong. Maybe the children don't know that your grandparents were alcoholics, or that your aunt and uncle are an alcoholic. They're not aware of it, but they're acting strange one day, and you kind of go, I didn't want to like being around uncle yesterday. He was kind of really acting out, and you kind of go, don't drink in front of our kids. You're scaring our kids. We don't want you near our kids now while you're drinking. End of story. If you're going to be drinking foamy, we'll make some other arrangement, but don't be drinking around our kids. It's scaring them. And this kind of stuff. So when we teach children that anxiety isn't a mental disorder, it's God's call to action, that something isn't right in your life. And when they learn that anxiety and depression, so depression is born out of the past. There's something in the past we haven't forgiven or been able to let go of that makes us feel depressed. Anxiety is the fear of the unknown future. So we get our children to stop going backwards. But if something happened in the past, tell you about it, and you'll sort it out with them, and then they can get past it. If it's a fear in the future, you'll go along with them. If they're going to an exam tomorrow, you'll go with them. You'll sit outside the classroom if you have to, while they're in the exam, and then you walk them home. They're for our children. We don't care what other kids think about this, whether we're going to the classroom. If we have to mollycoddle our kids to a stage where they feel safe and comfortable, we'll do that because they're our kids. The other children aren't our kids. We'll certainly watch out for other children, but we have an obligation to take care of our children and to give them every power we can give them. So we give them God. We give them an understanding that anxiety is a superpower. Depression is a superpower. Being angry is a superpower. It's okay to be angry. It's just don't take your angry. So don't be angry towards people who can't defend themselves. Don't hurt anybody. So you can be angry and say, I feel very angry, and I am very angry at you right now. That's okay. And if you have to defend yourself, you defend yourself. But never use your anger on somebody who's weaker than you. And we can teach our children this. There's nothing wrong in teaching our children that there's good anger and bad anger. There's good anxiety and bad anxiety. There's good depression and bad depression. We're in the position, we're the first line of defense to teach our children how to deal with life.
But there's so many parents right now that don't have this information. So how do we start getting the parents this information so that we can give the children this information? Because again, we have a whole generation now that has been raised different, that has had different kinds of information, and they're used to being scared, and they're used to not having these kinds of support. So again, how do we get people who don't know how to do this to start doing this?
Well, for starters, I'm thinking your podcast is a great place to start. I mean, in all honesty, I wish more and more people knew about podcasts and listened to podcasts, because this message is what they need to hear. I think the idea of having family barbecues where you invite your neighbors over, if you know who your children's friends are, you contact the parents, invite them over, and kind of discuss this. Would you be okay about maybe we do a Bible study together, or we practice this book by Richie about dream prayer and about practicing anxiety around the table together? We work together as a team and get other parents involved. Or if you're from a big family, I've got two brothers, two sisters, meet with them and have them come with their kids, and we do it as a family. We have this kind of event. There's ways around it, but I understand like it can be very hard because two parents are working. Some homes there's no father, there's no mother. It's very, very hard. But the first thing we can do is we can give them God. It doesn't cost us a penny. We don't have to join any religion, but you may find, giving them God, you may find you enjoy the fellowship of a church. You're meeting families at it that maybe your work colleagues or your neighbors, suddenly you're kind of going, that's my neighbor. And you meet them and you chat and you get on, great for you. Let alone, it's not for the kids, but you're meeting old school friends or, neighbors or something, and you're forming a friendship with people who are healthy. And that can be a wonderful thing to happen for parents, let alone children. Parents need support, and suddenly you meet a couple who are going to church and they're saying, we'll take the kids off you on Saturday and you do the following Saturday. You're kind of go, oh, thank God, we want to go for a day. We haven't been for a day for 2 months. And they're kind of going, yeah, we'll take the kids all day long on Saturday. And you're kind of going, thank you, Lord. Like, you're getting it out. And then the kids are meeting other kids who are believing in God and whatever. So I'm not saying don't go to church, because I don't go to church. I'm saying it might work for you, and it's a wonderful fellowship. And then in your community, find out if there's any community gatherings. Go down to your local church or your police station or community centre and find out if there's any days where families are gathering, and just go along, whatever. Because then you go on your own because Herb working, or Herb goes because you're working and you bring the kids on that day, and you just head to a barbecue and get involved, whatever the activity is. Bring the kids down to meet other kids, whatever. And you'll see them, they'll blossom. They'll be around kids and they'll enjoy themselves. And kids are kids, they'll just have a great time. But you give them a connection that they didn't have before. And that's the idea behind this. And so because we homeschool, we went in search of activities for our kids, because we didn't want them not having activities. So we signed her, I drove up to performance, and then performance arts. Now she does performance arts all over Asia. She goes from Thailand, she went to Burma, she went to Pakistan, she went to India, she went to Laos, she went to Vietnam. She did these performances all around. And then my son and herself now do modeling. They do modeling gigs. And so we're open to anything for them to do that gives them a way out, And so again, you just find some community you can attach them to. And sports, get them involved in sports. So our kids here, it's kickboxing and that kind of stuff. And I'm not looking for them to get into a ring and fight anybody, but I want to be able to defend themselves. They did Tai Chi and then they did kickboxing. They loved the kickboxing, they didn't enjoy the Tai Chi. But again, we're just trying to give them some solutions for themselves. And then they learn language, and they can play ukulele, they can play the electric guitar, they can play the Spanish guitar. Again, my daughter stopped playing once she met boys, but again, she has those skill sets within her, And that's the idea. You're just trying to give your kids as much as possible. So this can be a challenge, but start giving your kids skills, whatever they are, and that'll help get us started. But definitely, the God thing is a big part. Understanding that their feelings and emotions are not mental disorders. So you sit around the kitchen table and say, right, we're going to talk about all the ways to deal with anxiety. And here are our lists, Mommy and Daddy's lists. What do you think of those? And they go, that's a fantastic one. And that one, I don't like that one. I don't want to hide in the closet, but that's a fantastic one under the bed or in the spare room. I could do those two. And then they say, right, let's practice those. Go up and hide in the spare room and come down in 5 minutes, tell me how you feel. And they go up to the spare room, they hide there, they come down and they say, that was really cool. And hide behind the couch. You just under the table, in the kitchen, like you just give them different coping skills. And that's all we're trying to do. So for parents, the really cool one is to sit around the kitchen table and give them coping skills, new coping skills that they can use. In any situation, if a bully's coming towards them, scream out loud. Just scream out loud. Some adult will come along to what's going on and just point and say, Rich is bullying me. End of story. Just name and shame. Rich is bullying me. And then they go, Richard, stop bullying, whatever, and they know about it, and they tell the parents and tell the headmaster, and Richard's confronted about it, and his parents talk to it. Either they leave the school or whatever, but something happens. But if we teach our children to take action, to trust their anxiety as a superpower, that's the big one. The anxiety, if we can get over the anxiety one, I think that's the greatest gift we can give to our children.
It sure is. And I love how you were talking about as you were homeschooling, you intentionally went and searched out activities and things. And that's what, one of the biggest myths about homeschooling is that the kids are going to be weird because they aren't socialized and they don't do this or they don't do that. And it's like, no, homeschool parents know that they need to search out the activities and do the things, whether it's church related or school related or dance related or whatever.
And one of the things I really appreciated about what I heard is that when your kids were bullied, you took them out of school. You didn't push it back at the school. You made your kids your priority. It's like, oh, this isn't working. Let's do this. So many parents now don't have that audacity to be able to step out and to do things for themselves. So they push it off. Oh, we'll do this. Oh, we'll send them to the school. We'll work with counselors, but they don't step up and do what's best for their kids. And you did that. So you stepped in as like this. And even you said you weren't necessarily Christian, but you knew that your kids needed God. So you brought that in. So even though it wasn't necessarily for you, your kids needed it. So you stepped up in that way. And so many people aren't able to do that right now,
or they don't think they have permission to do it.
Or they don't have permission.
Part of our message, you do have permission to take care of you and your kids,
and it's your obligation. It's what you signed up for when you chose to have kids. It's like you're not like sending them off to let other people raise them. They're your responsibility. You need to step up and do what's right for your kids, whether it is taking them out of school because they're bullied or they don't feel safe, whether it is protecting them from the different environments. It's like that's your job. That's so yeah.
Thank you very much.
One thing I'll say, Herb, is sorry, Christina, I just want to say we would have liked to have kept them in the school. We tried the school. We spoke to the headmaster, spoke to the teachers. All their friends were in the school. It was a big school near our home. It was a great location. And we hadn't looked at homeschooling at that stage. We didn't want to go to any of the schools. They were very far away. So our first intention was to keep them in school and find some way to work around. So we did try the teachers, and we did try the counselors and whatever. But the thing was just that the bullies weren't going to stop. We found that out. So that meant we didn't have a choice. Either leave them be bullied or take them out. And at that point, we took them out. But I have to say our first intention was hopefully we'd find a solution that would work. Change classroom, whatever, that would work. But they changed classes, but then on the school break, the bullies would still come over on the school break. So even though they're out of the classroom, in different classroom, the bullying still happened. And so we realized it wasn't going to stop. But our first intention, like anyone, is to not to mess up their environment too much. All their friends or all the schoolmates go to that school. The fact they've been bullied by one or two, they wouldn't be bullied by the whole school. It was one or two bullies. So you don't want to take them from their home where all their friends are, because two bullies. In a class of 40 kids, two bullies bullying them. But at the end of the day, the bullying wasn't going to stop, and it was destroying our kids. And so that was it. We didn't have a choice anymore. Now it's a case of finding another school maybe 30 miles away, or look at homeschooling. That was it, So again, if we're all parents, even we talk about parents who are parents by accident. Once you hold a child and you give life to that child, everything changes. Because now your whole future is that child. And we need our children to understand that whether they are 3 years of age or 30 years of age, they're still our child. And we will give our lives for our child. And that's a message I think parents have to get over to their kids. We may be very busy trying to make ends meet. We may both be holding down jobs and working our arses off and working a 40, 50-hour week or whatever, and really don't have much time to play games. But the bottom line is we care about them deeply, and we'll do whatever it takes. And so this book I wrote, How to Live Stress and Anxiety Free 24 Hours a Day, is simple 10 or 12 practices that parents can do with children to basically teach them that their feelings and emotions are mental disorders, that they can practice dream prayer, they can do other little activities that are very simple to do and everything to do around the kitchen table. At the end of that day, suddenly the kids are addressing their anxiety and their depression even, and saying, I felt depressed today, but it's okay because it's not all day, it's not every day. I can be depressed and have despair today, but tomorrow there'll be a new thing. Tomorrow I'm only depressed because Uncle Michael's over for a week. When he's gone, I'll be okay again. They get to understand why they're depressed, why they're anxious, and then they know it'll pass, or they can ask for advice. And that's what we need to teach our children. There will be moments, even for us adults, God, we see what's happening in the world around us. we get anxious all the time.
Yeah.
We may hide it from our kids. Maybe we shouldn't hide it from our kids. We say, no, I'm really anxious. I've just seen what's going on in America or in Ukraine or in England or in Ireland. And it makes me very anxious, very depressed that society is falling away so badly. And that they're all like saying, you can't, a boy's a girl and a girl's a boy. Really makes me very, very depressed hearing this terrible stuff, you know. So let the kids know you get depressed too. You get anxious too. That it's not just them. I think we put on a brave face, a brave mask for our children.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest mistake we can make. When they think we have it all together, when in fact we don't. Like I said, we're new parents today to our child who's a day older today. We've never had that child before. I mean, tomorrow our children will be a day older. We've never had that child before. Like, you know, so yeah.
Thank you, Richard, so very, very much. So as we're starting to wrap up here, can you let parents and audience know how to get a hold of you in case something that you said today really resonates with them? I know the book is on Amazon, but how can they get a hold of you if they want a little bit more information?
I have an email. It's information@traumarecoveryanonymous.com.
Yep.
I have a podcast also, Trauma Recovery Anonymous. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, Tierney Therapy. My name is Richard Tierney. If you want to give me a call or send me an email, I'll respond to you happily. The book is very simple. It's written like for a child, and it's 10 to 12 very simple practices that you can introduce to your children in any moment, and it'll transform their lives. So make as many podcasts as you can. It's normal people carrying a message of hope. And that's what I love about podcasts. We're not paid by big companies to promote something. We're husbands and wives and parents and godparents and grandparents, and just trying to make ends meet in a way of emotionally help our children. So don't be afraid to come on and look for podcasts and take these messages. And you can do this. It's very simple. Your children have anxiety, but they don't understand anxiety is a superpower. And if you can learn it's a superpower and share that with them, you'll transform their lives. Christina, Herb, thank you for having me on.
You are very, very welcome. We're so glad you were here today.
Yep, I'd like to also thank you for being here today. So many people like just talk about the problems, but you also stepped up and you made your children the most important. You pulled them out of school when that became the thing that needed to happen. And so parents stepping up like that is so important. And so you being here, sharing your story and helping other parents be able to step up, that is super important. So thank you for being here. Thank you for actually doing what you do, because you are making the world a better place. So again, thank you.
Very kind. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, parents and audience, you know what time it is. It is time to like and review and share the podcast, because bringing education home can't reach anybody, can't help anybody if you don't share it and help them know that this beautiful resource is here with awesome people like Richard and all of our other guests who are only here to serve families and help our children grow up to be happy, healthy, and successful.
And if you do want to share it, make sure you share it in the comments. So comment their name. That way you're sharing it and you're commenting, and it helps increase usability, so more people will find it. So make sure you if you are going to send it to somebody, that you comment in the comments so that they find it that way. That would be super helpful.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for everything, and we will talk to you later. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts